All right. Welcome everyone to the state of the game for July 7th. I was confused because usually we get an orange transition screen.
It's been a while
and
since that's happened, Yannick.
we didn't get it, so there, you ruined my intro. Something changed because I'm actually sitting in Hamish's chair, which is very, very weird and very confusing for me, but that's fine. I'll deal with that. The reason being that Hamish is here, Hamish is back, but unfortunately Peter is not, so we have nobody to handle the tech.
I'm still a
stuff.
ghost.
So Hamish is actually doing the tech stuff for us.
Yeah.
Thanks, Hamish.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I'm still here. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
State of the game time, Yannick.
All right.
Make me proud.
All right. So yeah. So that means therefore I get a promotion. I get to sit in Hamish's chair. But I'm actually not alone today. I have someone just on my right that you can't see right now. Oh no, you can.
Hello.
That was perfect.
Yes.
The first ever time people see you and you make a weird face. Thanks, Matt.
You're welcome.
All right. So yeah, who's that guy? So this is Matt. Matt.
Yes.
Who are
Hi,
you?
I'm Matt Higbee. I'm a game designer here at Massive. I work on our live operations team. So we are sort of broadly speaking responsible for doing coordination with all the different studios that are working on building features for the game. In charge of looking at infrastructure. We work with you guys in the community team, with the QA teams, with our different customer service teams, and basically try to ensure that the live game experience is healthy and entertaining and fun for our players as much as it can be.
Mm-hmm. So basically in charge of or in the middle of everything that is happening with.
That's right. That's right. So we have several different game teams that are
Mm-hmm.
working on building features and working on doing tuning and bug fixing and stuff for the game itself. And we are kind of the nerve center that's coordinating all of those things and making sure that the updates are getting put together in a way that makes sense, that features are reinforcing each other in a way that makes sense, and that the game continues, again, to just be healthy and an entertaining place for our players to spend their time.
So somebody in chat just said, let's see what we can blame you for. Welcome to our community, Matt.
Right on. Hey, man, I'm here to be blamed.
All right. So first, before we get Matt involved, quick update on the PTS. So we are currently running PTS 3 on both PC and console. It was deployed on console at the beginning of the week. Right now, the plan is still as it was when I talked about it last week, which is this is the final build for the PTS. We will not be updating the PTS with a new build, but we are already working on the final version of update 1.7. That's going to be including a lot of the changes that we've talked about. Last week we talked about the classified drop rates, for example. This is still being worked on. We're still tweaking the numbers, and we will let you know when we made the final decision on what are actually going to be the actual drop rates. So this is some of the final tweaks. There's a bunch of bug fixing also, like a big bug fixing pass that is being done to kind of clean up the update. There's going to be a few other minor tweaks that will be done. So all of this is being worked on right now. And as soon as we have a finalized build and we know it's approved, we will be able to give you a release date, because I know a lot of you guys are waiting for a release date. I was seeing in the chat before we started the state of the game, do you think they will give a release date? No, they won't. No, we will not give you a release date. We can tell you it's going to be hopefully August, around mid-August or something like that. But we can't commit 100% until we're sure that the build is OK, that we get it certified by the first parties and all these kind of things, and we get all the approvals needed.
Yep.
So until then, it's, think about it, around mid-August, but everything can still change depending on what's gonna happen.
And critically, there's still plenty of time for people to get us feedback about what's on PTS and tell us the things they like and don't like, what feels right, what feels wrong.
Yeah.
And we are continuing to adjust up until the time that the patch goes live.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always the same when we talk about changes that are client side or server side. Eventually we have to lock the client side, but server side we can always just keep, doing until the last moment. So yeah, the feedback should keep flowing until then and even after that. But yeah, so that's it for the PTS. But that's not the big thing today. That's not the big thing that we want to talk about. What we want to talk about, and I know that Buzz has been setting the expectation with his teaser video that he just released earlier today. So yeah, there's been a big debate in the community over the encrypted caches. There's no denying that. We've seen there's a lot of opinions about it. It's a very polarizing debate, and obviously, we don't want to ignore that. It's a very big and important discussion to have. It's something that you guys have been debating over for the past days and weeks, actually. So that's actually why we brought Matt here to kind of talk about it and give us a bit more insight, because first, that is true. What some people have been mentioning is the fact that it's a very kind of, there's not much transparency as to how the feature actually works, because that's true. We didn't do like a dev blog to talk about it, or we didn't really give any details on how the feature actually works. So that's what we wanted to do today, kind of explain how the feature works, what's our philosophy behind it, and try to answer some of the questions that we've seen from the community.
Word.
Exactly, right?
Yes.
So, Matt.
Yes.
Let's begin. What about, no, yeah, okay, let's start just, what are the encrypted caches? What's the concept behind it?
So the idea with the encrypted cache is a few months ago we added the premium vendor to the game. And most of you guys, I'm sure, have seen the premium vendor, and they sell lots of different cosmetic customizations for premium currency. Well, one of the most consistent and sort of loud pieces of feedback that we got about it was from players who had been playing the game for years, had been playing the game for months, had dedicated a lot of time and effort into the game, and they were saying, well, I wish that I could actually spend more of my time to be able to get some of these items too. So with the encrypted cache, one of our goals was to find a way to put those items in the game and have them be something where they could both be monetized. We could have them be something where you can go and spend money on them in the premium vendor, but people who do dedicate a lot of time have a path to be able to unlock those items as well. And I think the encrypted cache, the way that we've implemented it, is one of very few implementations of this kind of mechanic where we're actually expecting quite a large percentage of people who are getting items from the encrypted cache to be getting them purely through playing the game, getting keys from that, and unlocking their items that way. And then, of course, there's also the other side, which is it is another monetizable feature that we're adding to the game. And we have keys that you can purchase that are going to let you quickly go through and get all of the different items, or buy one or two here every once in a while when you feel like it, or maybe you have some money left over in your wallet after you bought an emote that you really like. You'll be able to use those and get more items. But I think really critically, when we designed the encrypted cache and when we started thinking about adding it to the game, we wanted it to be a very generous feature. We didn't want it to be something that felt stingy. We didn't want it to be something that felt like it was a nickel and diming money grab. So, for example, the prices aren't final on PTS. People haven't really seen it yet. But the price for the thing is actually going to be relatively low when you buy, especially if you buy like one of the big packs of keys. And you will always be earning more value out of it than you would get if you purchased items from the store directly. So we have these two sort of counterbalancing mechanics there. One, there's a lot that you can get from just grinding in game. There's a lot that you can get from spending your time doing things like commendations and getting the cipher keys from the game. But there's also the flip side, the monetized side. It still is overly generous, though, or maybe not overly generous. It is still extremely generous in that the minimum that you're going to be able to get from it is always going to be about 150 to 200% more than the value that you're putting into it at any given time. So those two things were both very important to us when we designed the cache.
Okay.
I don't remember what your original question was. I just talked for 10 minutes. So.
Thank you. All right, we're done. No, we're not. So, like, I wanted to say something. I know you completely disturbed me.
Apologize.
But yeah, no, one of the big aspects to that, and you talked about it, it's the fact that you can grind in-game for it as well. But I know that a lot of feedback has been on the key fragments and like how you acquire those. We'll keep that for later in the discussion, because that's also something where we have some updates for you guys compared to what you've seen on the PTS. But first, let's focus on the caches and how they actually work.
Sure.
So, basically, how is it calculated? What are the chances to get specific items? Because one of the big discussions we've had is like, how do I know, like, what are my chances to get that one item that I want?
Whew, okay, so there's a lot kind of going on under the hood in the encrypted cache. So it's not purely a flat chance. You can't imagine it like a roulette wheel where there's 36 or 38 or however many slots there are in a roulette wheel slots, and you have an even chance of getting anything in that slot. There's several different sort of odds mechanisms that exist within there. Largely speaking, these odds mechanisms are meant to skew it towards unlocking better items for the players. So we have two that exist. One is that each time you get a new item, So if you open up an encrypted cache, there's 3 items that get displayed. Each time you get one, we boost the percentage chance that you're going to get what we call a collectible item. So there are 22, in the current version of it at least, the version that's going to go live, there's 22 collectible items that belong to specific collections in the game. And each one of those items, when you complete a collection, gives you another item that sort of belongs to a sort of meta collection.
Yeah.
Those are kind of the progress through the encrypted cache. The idea is that once you've collected all 22 of those items, then you can be finished with this version of the encrypted cache, and maybe we'll release a new version of it later that has a different set of items in it that you can kind of go through and get. But that one mechanic where we're boosting the percentage chance that you're going to get a collectible makes it difficult for us to say this is the exact odds table of all these different items. And then within that, when you get a collectible item, we actually look at the collections that you have and what your progress is in each one of the collections that you have. And the collections that you're closer to completing, we boost the percentage chance that you're going to get an uncollected item from one of those collections. So the thought there is, again, we want to make it easier for players to actually complete these collections instead of it being a 1 in a million shot to be able to get the very last rare item that belongs to the very last collection that you need completed. By the time you have a collection and you have 4 out of 5 of the things in it, even if that last one is a rare drop, you're going to have a pretty high percentage chance of getting that last thing that's going to slot in and finish your collection off. It won't be the same as just a 1 in 100 drop as you would expect if it was a 1% drop on a high-end item, for example.
Yeah.
So there's that mechanic that exists. But the overall chances, the overall odds, are relatively standard. So within the standard set of items, there's 4 different rarity tiers, which match with the 4 different rarity tiers of items that people are used to from standard loot. So there's kind of common, there's an uncommon, there's a rare, and there's kind of a high-end item. So those break down roughly in a way that you would expect, where about 60% of them are coming from the common items, about 30% are coming from the uncommon. I think it's about 7% are coming from rare, and about 3% are the high-end ones.
Okay.
And those remain relatively flat. So when you go into the standard items pool and you're not going through any of those mechanisms that are pushing you towards completing the collections, then you have a relatively flat distribution of items within those percentage breakdowns in the standard pool.
Okay. But then comes all the mechanics of, depending on, like, if you're a player that's just opening the very first encrypted cache and so hasn't started any collection, you'll have different odds compared to like somebody who actually already started collecting stuff.
Exactly right. And when we look at the life cycle of players going through, at least on PTS data right now, we're able to see that as a player has 10 items collected out of the total number of items, you can actually see the rolls that they're getting skew a little bit more towards the high end and the rare items, just because they're more likely to get a rare because they probably didn't have the rare completed in the collections that they've made progress on. They're more likely to get the commons and the uncommons in the collection. Yeah. And then you actually can see these jumps in the drop percentages as players progress through the collections.
So, because one of the concerns we've seen a lot, and one of the arguments that has been used about this feature is that if there is this one item, like if I have this collection and I'm missing, 1 or 2 items or whatever, and I really want those, I may be stuck in a loop where I really need to invest a lot either of time or money into getting this one item. And so what you're saying is that there is actually a mechanic in there that's kind of protecting you for that.
Exactly.
It's making it more and more likely the more you roll, and the more likely it is that you're going to get the items you're missing. That's
exactly right. Yeah, we built that mechanic specifically to kind of preemptively address that concern. Because it sucks if you're waiting on that one last item to fill out a collection or to fill out a build, and it's such a rare chance to get that one thing, and then on top of it, it's a rare chance to get a good version of it or whatever. That's not really a concern with the mystery box collections, obviously, or they're very. You don't have to worry about stats on them since they're all purely cosmetic items. Yeah. But we wanted to make it be something that felt satisfying and felt like it was you had a chance to actually win, and the victory condition, of course, is to get that last item in your checkbox, check it off. So we want to make sure that that's something that happens frequently and isn't a very, very, very rare case. Okay. And so because you talk about the items that are part of a collection, you said there's 22 items, right, that are part. So how many collections is that? 5. There's 5 total collections. So 3 of them have 5 items in them. 1 of them has 4. 1 of them has 3. Okay. And then each one of those gives you 1 piece of the astronaut suit, which is the final collection for the overall, for this version of the encrypted cache. So you have
5 collections you can complete out of the cache, and then a 6th one that is if you complete the cache collections.
That's exactly right. That's
Okay.
exactly right.
But obviously, there's more items in the cache.
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
It's not just all part of collection. There's also a bunch of items.
That's right. The rest of the items are largely items that will circulate in and out of the premium vendor. So most of the items that are in there right now in what we call the standard pool of items are premium vendor items. And this is anywhere from a pair of boots that would have been 100 premium credits, all the way to one of the top-end emotes, which could have been 700 premium credits. So we do make sure to have a good distribution of all the different values in there. And at least for this version of the encrypted cache, that standard pool will remain the same. So all the items that are in the standard pool here are going to be in the version 1 encrypted cache. I'm not sure exactly what we're going to call subsequent versions if we do decide to do subsequent versions. But the subsequent ones would have a completely different library of items. But that library would be pulled from the same source as the premium vendor does.
So that means that the items you can get in the premium cache or in the encrypted cache right now are there items that were the premium vendor already, or is it just new items?
It's mostly items that have been on the premium vendor already. There are maybe a third of the items are unique to the mystery box as of right now, and then there's a few items in there as well that will be on the premium vendor, but they haven't been introduced onto the premium vendor yet. So as part of this update, as we're adding a lot of new content to support the encrypted cache, we're also adding some new weapon skins, new camos, new outfits, new emotes. So lots of new content for both the premium vendor and the encrypted cache is kind of going in this client update. And that means that over the next several months, just as we have over the last few months, we'll be continuing to update the premium vendor with new offerings, new types of camo, new patterns, et cetera.
Yeah. So that means that if you really want to know what you're buying in a way, because that's one of the criticism we see around the cache is that if I want that item in particular, maybe I don't want to invest into all these caches or whatever.
Right.
If that's one of the items that is not part of a collection, if it's part of a collection, yes, you have to use the cache.
Correct.
But if it's not part of a collection, you can also wait, and eventually it's going to be put at the premium vendor. Right?
That's right. Or at least it'll have a very high percentage chance to, right? Because it's coming from the same pool of available items that the premium vendor uses. So each couple weeks we look through the pool of items, we figure out based on how sales are going, we look and analyze which items are selling, which ones aren't. We get rid of the ones that aren't selling very well, put new fresh ones on there, and we start keeping the inventory fresh. So that pool, that source that the new fresh items are coming from is the same pool that the standard item is going to be coming from.
So that leads us to one of the first trick question in a way.
Ooh, trick question. Can I phone a friend? Hamish!
Hamish!
I need to phone a friend.
Answer the trick question. No, so as we talk about, there is an overlap between the premium vendor and the cache. So one of the big questions we've seen, and one of the big debates is that, if we're looking at monetizing content, why don't we just take everything and put that in a premium vendor directly? Why did we decide to make the encrypted cache?
So I think there's a couple answers to that question. And your desire to accept these answers, I think, has a lot to do with your pre-existing opinions on business and companies and et cetera. But a couple reasons. One, it's always good to experiment with different business models and see which ones work well and which ones don't. The premium vendor is very straightforward. It's easy to understand, but it's also something where players have to interrupt the thing that they're doing. They go out of their way and they're going to a shopping experience. It's a little bit different than the idea of a mystery box, which actually has some production value behind it. There's some sort of kind of entertainment kind of imbued in the very idea of the mystery box itself in opening it and et cetera. So it's just a different application of a monetization system. And then it's important for us to look at those applications and see which one works better for our players, which one works better for the business model, which one seems like it's more sustainable. And knowing that is going to be really important. The other answer is that increasing the amount of revenue that we have just in general is a really important goal for us because it helps us to make the argument that, hey, this is a game that warrants continual reinvestment, that really is something that our players are into. We have ideas for different kinds of businesses that we can build off of the off of the base game. So that, to certain people, is a really important thing to be able to show and a very critical thing for them to approve continued investment and continued funding for all of the things that we're building that are, for instance, new content, new game systems, new features, et cetera, like you're going to see in 1.7 and like people are going to see and be very excited by in 1.8.
Yeah. Okay, so there is also another thing that's been discussed is the fact that in these caches you can actually get duplicates. So like if you got this item and you roll another cache, there is a chance that you're going to get the same item again.
Yeah.
There was a discussion is like why do we allow duplicates? Why not just make it so that once you actually got this item, there is no chance whatsoever that you will have it again?
Yeah. So it's tricky. We've talked about this a couple times, and I'm sure you're sick of hearing me say that it's tricky. But there's sort of, if for instance, let's imagine that we have a system that has 100 items in it, or let's say it has 30 items in it, just to make the math simple, right?
Yeah.
And each time I'm getting 3 of the damn things, and there's no duplicates at all. What we've basically said is, this is a buy 10 keys and you get all the items system, and that's it. And at that point, there's not much of a difference between adding that to the game and just putting a bundle on the premium vendor that charges you however much 10 keys is worth and just gives you those 10 items.
Yeah.
The only difference is the order in which you're going to be getting them. But eventually, if there's no duplicates and there's no actual chance of having that randomness, that means you're just going to check them all off in one go. With this system, we have a couple different things that kind of make that not be a reality. One, as I mentioned earlier, there's kind of a desire to have the progress through the mystery box be guided by the collections. So once you knock out all those collections, you can kind of consider yourself done. You've gotten most of the things that is going to be yielded from the encrypted cache. So we have a lot more items in there than collection items. So there'll be a lot of other things that you could be getting while you're waiting for those collectibles to get finished, right? So that's one thing. Is it hopefully is something where people who are getting and playing this thing and able to go into the game and grind the keys, they're able to go and go to the premium vendor and open the caches and have an entertaining experience just opening those caches, waiting for their last pieces to come out. And it isn't just a, hey, buy 30 items in a box kind of thing. So if we got rid of dupes, we would lose that that mechanic. Now that being said, we have talked a little bit about maybe with future releases that we will remove dupes, and it is something that we're kind of continuing to discuss because there's positives and there's negatives to doing it.
Yeah.
I think what would end up happening is if we got rid of dupes, we would end up having to have some other kind of bottomless compensation in there. So you can imagine maybe this isn't an example of something that I think we would do, but it would be something like a currency where, okay, I got a 500 Phoenix credits pack, or here's 1,000 Dark Zone credits pack. And those would be placed in with the regular rolls so that it wasn't just purely it's 10 times through this and I'm finished. You know what I mean? Then at least we would be able to have more than just a guaranteed set of maximum rolls before you're done using the system.
Yeah. But then if you're touching currency with real money, then we are...
Well, yeah, that's why I said it's not a great example. So a better example would be maybe doing something like if we wanted to, what do we call them? The key fragments. So we've got key fragments that you get when you get a duped item. You might imagine seeing the key fragment packages being something that you're getting. So, I got 10 key fragments in this box, but I don't actually get it's not a duplicate item, it's just something that would roll as an award to help pad out the total number of awards so you don't just have a fixed number. Yeah.
All right. Another question that has come a lot is because we used, and I used actually in one of the answer I gave on the forums, the comparison with like collectible trading card games or this kind of stuff, like baseball cards or Magic the Gathering or whatever you want. And one of the arguments that came out of that was that but these you can trade.
Yeah.
So like even if you get dupes, at least you can trade it because it's a physical thing that you can trade with other people.
Right.
So why don't we do that? Why don't we allow people to trade the items?
So, I mean, trading is another thing where there's a lot of positives and there's negatives to it too. I think that once you introduce trading to a system like this, then you do end up with a system that could potentially be used as a gambling system. And now I have an item that is valuable, and I have an outlet for it. I can trade this to you outside of the game, and you can send me some bitcoins or whatever, and I'll give you my hat. You know, that opens the door to the potential for actual gambling, and we've seen in other games too the repercussions of doing that thing. So I think that that's pretty scary. And isn't something that I would want to do. The flip side is that, of course, it's incredibly satisfying to actually be able to have that outlet and be able to trade items. You know, the economy that it builds up amongst players is actually really interesting and really cool to see, and it is entirely driven by players and players. You know, the marketplace for what people are willing to spend on buying those kinds of items or trading those types of items. So, I mean, there's definite advantages and there's disadvantages to it. You know, at the end of the day, we don't have any sort of like auction house system. We don't have any sort of player trading system in the game, and I think that we wanted to maintain that kind of cleanness of not having to worry about introducing something that could lead us down the road towards people actually, you know, buying and selling things on eBay or whatever.
So it's not completely a closed door, but it's more like the idea on paper could actually be interesting, but it's just that the implications in terms of like real money trading and like actually then suddenly putting an actual monetary value on an item, then it becomes...
That's right. Yeah. I think as a concept, it's incredibly interesting. It's a very evocative idea to say, okay, we can have this player economy and players are going to be able to trade all these things. It solves a ton of problems with us having to figure out what to do with an item that, hey, cool purple hat, but purple's not my color, man. I want an orange hat.
Yeah.
So, you know, this thing's not for me. I can trade it, and I can go get an orange hat.
Yeah.
You know, that's a very cool thing. And, you know, my background is working in MMOs, and so I'm very used to games that have that as sort of a cornerstone of their design. So you know, from my point of view, I like it. I think it's actually a really powerful thing. But at the same time, it does open the door towards some of these behaviors and some of these concerns that I think rightfully so are something that should be avoided and something that we definitely don't want to be encouraging or pushing the game towards.
Yeah. I see a bunch of comments of people that are like...
Do we have the chat over there? What the hell? I didn't even realize it.
It's very small.
Shut
Hamish,
up
can
and
you
fix
make it
the game,
bigger?
it says.
I can make it bigger.
No, I see a lot of people that are like, oh, that's boring. We don't care about that. When are we going to talk about the game? I mean, it's been a very, very hot topic this week, and so we really want to take the time to talk about it. And I know that this is not necessarily the kind of game update that you guys want, but this is a state of the Yannick. What? No. Although I'm sitting in Hamish's chair here. So yeah, but today we're not talking about new content. We're not talking about, you know, like hardly talked even about PTS. What we want to do today is just like give you guys more visibility on this feature because you guys have been talking about it. You guys have made it a hot topic. So we respect that enough that we are taking the time now to talk about it, give you more visibility on how it works, why we're doing it, and hopefully that's gonna, you know, answer some of the questions. So sorry if it's boring, but I think it's important that we talk about it. Where was I now in my notes?
I don't know.
You don't know, right?
No, I wasn't looking at your notes.
All right.
Okay. Be surprised.
Okay.
I'm here to be surprised.
Here's another one.
All right.
Here's another one. About the drop rates.
Okay.
Okay.
Shit. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
So, no, one of the concerns that we've seen is the fact that since the drop rates are not visible to the community, what are the odds that we would change them afterwards? Or what are like, you know, how does it work? Are we planning on changing the drop rates if we see that an item is popular? You know, that was one of the concerns is like, they will see that an item is popular, so they're going to decrease the drop rate, so they're going to make more money out of people trying to get it.
Right. Well, you know, that's not something that I would ever be okay with us doing, changing the drop rate on a specific item to make it more rare so people have to grind more keys to be able to get that rare item. I don't think that that's something we would ever think about doing. We may change the drop rates for categories overall. So we might make it so that all of the rare items all have a slightly higher or slightly lower chance of dropping. We wouldn't actually go in and say, this particular rare item, this one, is now 1,000,000,000 to 1 shot. But, you know, we don't want to do that. So I could see us tuning broadly the categories. I can also see us tuning things like the key drop rate, the fragment drop rate in game. So that's something that we'll be watching very, very closely and making sure that people are earning key fragments at a rate that we feel is acceptable, both acceptably fast and not too fast. You know, and ensuring that keys are coming into the world and being used by players at an appropriate rate, et cetera. That's something else that I'm sure that we'll be tuning quite a bit. And not just tuning the drop rate, but also adding the keys to other areas of the game over time, et cetera.
That's a perfect segue.
All right.
It's amazing. It's almost as if we rehearsed it, but we actually didn't, so that's perfect.
Amazing.
So let's talk about the fragments.
Okay.
Because that's one of the things that has been driving a lot of the criticism, which is the fact that the fragments are extremely rare on the PTS right now.
Right.
And that's not something we want to keep, right?
No, no. We looked into the data on PTS and saw what the rates that were, what the theoretical rates that at which players were going to be getting keys, and it was significantly below where we wanted it to be. We actually just boosted the rate on named NPCs from, I think it was at 3% for named NPCs in the Dark Zone and in the Light Zone, and we boosted that up to 20% now for key fragments. So that should have them dropping quite a bit more often. Yep. They're also attached to a lot of commendations. So when 1.7 goes live, there's going to be, you know, hopefully there'll be a feeding frenzy on people going through and completing commendations and knocking out the different commendations that they want. And that will, we hope, drive some of the early kind of mystery box or encrypted cache usage, so more people are able to get a look at it through just knocking out some of those low-hanging fruit in the commendations table, which is really a good thing. And then, as I said, at least at launch, we'll have it on commendations and we'll have it on named NPCs.
Yep.
But then over time, we're looking at ways that we can add it to last stand rewards, survival caches, so we can have it in underground. We can have it in more places than just getting dropped as normal loot.
Yeah. So the named NPCs right now, that's Dark Zone, Open World.
That's right. Yep. And we're looking into adding it to mission bosses and things like that as well.
Okay.
So, you know, I'm hoping that most of those changes go through, and that we have a really, I think, surprisingly generous drop rate of these, because again, it is critical to us to have this be an avenue that people can go and get cosmetics and vanity items without being forced to spend money to be able to do it. So we want it to be attainable. It shouldn't be an immense grind. And in fact, I'll give you guys the numbers. We targeting, like my target number for it is that somebody should be able to get a key for the encrypted cache, roughly, depending on like how hardcore of a grinder you are, somewhere between 5 and 10 hours or so of gameplay, you should be getting one. So you should be getting a key fragment at least every hour, if not faster than that. You should be getting one of these things. Okay. So, you know, 2 or 3 play sessions in, and you should have a run at it, and that's you know, that's better than you will have gotten 3 vanity items for with grinding ever before.
So 5 to 10 hours to get a key, so that means like 5 to 10 hours to open, you know, an encrypted cache.
Correct.
Yeah, because somebody was saying in chat, sorry I didn't catch your name, saying that he tried on the PTS today, he did a run through the whole open world and killed all the bosses and just got 1 fragment.
Yeah.
So
No,
that's the thing with the 3%.
Yeah. And you know what? You know, we don't have a super robust pseudo-random system. There's no way for me to say, hey, in general, one of these things should pop out of an NPC every hour or so. So if you've been killing guys for 1 hour and 10 minutes, then you kill a guy, you have a 100% chance that one's going to pop out, and then, you know, some games will have a pseudo-random loot system like that, where they can actually say, this item comes at this rate. We don't have that. Yeah. So we are beholden to the RNG gods still. So you may get 5 fragments in an hour. I may get 1 fragment in 2 hours. Yeah. But over time, in aggregate, the amount that players are going to be getting is what I had mentioned earlier.
Okay. All right, so I'm kind of done with my notes here. So now let's just take a minute to look at chat. Do you guys have any questions? Yeah, that's fine. You can chill for a minute.
Cool.
I'll try to get good questions.
Good luck.
About the encrypted caches. Lag. So no, lag. Yeah, there's a bunch of things about lag. No, lag is something we're looking at, and Matt can also talk about it because he's also in the middle of all these discussions. But yes, obviously, there's been a lot of complaints about lag for a while, and especially even more recently. So that's definitely one of the top of our priority list thing that we want to look at. Right?
Definitely. Every week, we have several different live operations update meetings where we are looking at what are the big issues that players are talking about right now. Are they bugs? Are they exploits? Or is it cheats? Is it lag? Is it Mike and Delta errors? Whatever the big kind of hot topics of discussion within the community are, we're looking into and we're trying to figure out. And you know what? We end up spending a huge amount of time with our server infrastructure team digging into, well, why could this be more laggy now? Why is it adding more stuff? And it's unfortunate because a lot of that time and a lot of that effort doesn't always translate into results.
Yep.
So it can look like, oh, well, these guys aren't paying attention and they're not spending any time or they're not spending any effort on trying to fix these problems, when the truth, that couldn't be further from the truth. Yep. There is a lot of effort and a lot of time being spent on doing it. But sometimes these lag issues, I don't know how much we want to talk about, but like a lot of times the lag issues come from things like adding new features to the game.
Yep.
We add a new feature, for example, in like legendary mode, we have higher fidelity AI. And when you start running higher fidelity AI on the servers, that ends up costing the server CPU.
Yeah.
And that can cause the server to get more laggy.
Yeah.
So as we are improving the game and adding more things to the game, increasing players' inventory spaces, things like that, all of these can have a repercussion of potentially making the server more laggy. So the infrastructure guys are constantly kind of looking and triaging the different features that we're adding, trying to figure out if this is going to make the game worse or make the game slower, and then flagging different features. And we work with them quite a bit on it. But at the end of the day, it's one of those things where we're always looking for more information. We're always trying to get logs from players talking about what their connection status is or what their connection problems are. And it's just a tough problem to solve with online games like this. You're always dealing with lag one way or the other.
There was one example also of thing that could lead to lag and decreased performance, for example, was also with mobile cover. When people were cheesing mobile cover, and there are still ways to do that, but like using mobile cover in some specific collision situations that allow you to go through walls or whatever, and then we've had it more and more like security checks by the game to make sure like, okay, you can put a mobile cover here, you can put more there or whatever, and then that just like increases the load of not only the server but also the client on your side as well, of all the checks you have to do, and that can decrease your performance as well.
It's completely true. It's like if you imagine our game as like a big armored truck, right? And it's driving over a bridge. And over time, you're patching the armor and you're adding more stuff to it. You're trying to protect it from, shit, now they're shooting at us with rocket launchers. We need to cover the tires with this new stuff. And you're constantly patching and adding more things to protect the game or things to fix problems with the game. Yep. And it ends up making it heavier and heavier and heavier, and it gets a little bit slower as it's going across the bridge. And it's hard to balance those two priorities at once. Yeah. But again, that's something that we have a lot of people who are dedicated towards looking into those types of problems, and they spend, basically all of their time looking into them. And they fix a lot of things that ends up helping 0.1% of players, and they fix some of things that help 100% of players. It's really, really hard to get it to the point where 100% of people are happy 100% of the time with the way that the connections work, especially with a game like this that's been live for 2 years and has had a lot of add-ons to it over those time.
And it's just adding all the things, because to be fair, I think there has been some kind of degradation of the situation with latency and all that over the time. Some people are mentioning since 1.6 in particular. So that's why we've always had this kind of effort at trying to improve performance and all that. But lately we've renewed that even more, and there is like a very deep investigation going on right now into all the things that you mentioned, like what could be the potential causes of that? Are these new features? Are these inventory increase? All these kind of things, trying to find out if there is one common root, or if it's just an aggregate of plenty of other issues. Right. Some people are just like, well, you should just invest in better servers. If that were so easy, I think we would do it, and we would have done it already. Unfortunately, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's more complicated. But yes, to answer the question, yes, lag is a concern, lag is an issue, and lag is something definitely that we want to address. So.
And nothing I was saying earlier was trying to make excuses for it or say that, oh, well, we've done what we can. It's an ongoing battle that we'll continue to fight, and it absolutely is our responsibility to make sure that the game is part of having an entertaining game is having a game that works really well and works consistently and isn't laggy. So we know that job number one, above and beyond anything else, is to keep the game entertaining and keep people excited to be able to log in and have a good time.
Yeah. Commendation key fragments retroactive. What are you talking about? So is there a question if the commendations that are linked to key fragments, if these commendations will be retroactive? I don't know. I think there are some commendations that are retroactive, but not all of them are.
There are a handful, a small handful of them that are retroactive. And those are things like go to Manhattan, because you can't do it again, right? Once you're there, you did it. Anything that's not retroactive, you're going to have to do over again. So we made that choice because there were some that we just couldn't make retroactive. We just didn't have the data. We didn't know how many Rikers you had killed, for instance. I'm not sure if that's an exact example, but things like that where we just didn't have the retroactive data, and because it was so spotty which ones we had data for and which ones we didn't, that rather than cut a bunch of them that we didn't have data for, which we thought were really cool commendations, or rather than only just fill in a few and have people say, well, why are some of mine filled in and some of them aren't, we decided to just do it consistently and say, the rule is, if it's something that you can still complete, it's not something that you can only do one time, like completing your boo, then it's not retroactive. If it is something you only do once, like unlocking all the wings of your boo, then it is retroactive.
Okay.
Question, so you will get a spike of key fragments when you log in the first time because of the commendations?
Well, you'll be able to go and kind of cherry pick the low-hanging fruit of commendations and knock out some of those ones to be able to get some quick key fragments.
All right, cool.
Okay. Country flag patches, that's a good idea. I like that.
Country flags are tricky. I know I don't have to go into a long diatribe about every single question in here, but country flags are tricky, man. Some of them have their...
Because legal issues? Or?
Legal issues. Some of them have their flag like copyrighted and trademarked, and they get really hung up on you doing anything with the flag. It's weird. We actually made some really cool weapon skins. I don't know if you saw them. They were awesome. Really, really neat ones that have a whole bunch of different country flag themes. And I think they got quashed.
Yeah. I see mentions of Cronus Max in the chat. Yes, this is an issue, and this is something we're looking at. Definitely, we are fully aware of that, and we are equally as annoyed.
What are we annoyed by?
Cronus
the chat?
Max.
Is that what you said?
Cronus Max.
Oh, okay.
Come on.
Keep up the awesome work. Hell yeah. Look at that guy. That guy
Thanks,
knows what's going
Hamish.
on.
It wasn't me. Promise.
Sneak peek on mask in 1.7. We don't actually have a sneak peek, but that's a cool idea. We should do that. We should do a mask reveal thing because they are cool.
Unmasking? This guy.
He did say he was going to make it super awkward and cringy, so there, you did it. You did it.
Nope. What else? And these questions suck. Let's get some good questions.
PTS4? No, we said probably no PTS4 unless we change our mind, and that is a possibility. Should never say never, but right now we are not looking at doing one. Yannick, there was something about Yannick, but I missed it.
They want Hamish and Yannick masks.
Yeah, this guy. I think that was for you.
No.
Just said this guy though, nothing else. All right. You suck, not questions.
All right.
Thanks, guy. Matt, he said you suck.
Nah, he was talking about you.
All right, I can't even keep up with chat. I think we triggered it. So.
It's over for this game. What? State of the game sucks. State of the game rules, dude. What are you talking about? This is entertainment. This is entertainment. What more could we do? What more could we do? How can we make this better? Let's figure it out. How can we make State of the Game not suck? Let's make it be the most entertaining stream that we can make it be.
Fix the game.
I was thinking like start flipping some of the set over and smash some of this.
Don't trash it. All right, I think guys, you can go now. It's just gonna be Matt just like going nuts.
It's not nuts.
Nudes, no, don't say that.
All right.
State of the game doesn't suck.
Thank you. See?
What is no? There was a question, actually relevant one. What is PTS-free contamination so high? I don't know why, but yes, we are addressing that.
It's really, really strong right now.
It's too strong, and it's been nerfed a bit for the release, so it's not going to be that strong when it comes out.
Yeah.
What's your favorite pizza? Someone was asking, but there was a second part to the question, and I didn't see the second part. So,
what is your favorite pizza?
What's your take on a banana and pineapple pizza?
Banana and pineapple?
Yeah, or either or.
Pineapple, I think, is a perfectly legitimate pizza topping, but banana seems a little bit sketchy to me. Banana, I would stay away from.
Banana curry is pretty amazing, though.
Man, I don't know about you sometimes. I like pineapple, jalapenos, and pepperoni. I think that makes a really good combo pizza, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll do that one. But no bananas for me, man.
All right. Well, you have to try.
What do you guys think? Bananas?
We should make a poll.
Poll?
Hamish.
I could, but I'm not going to.
SASG, yeah. Shotguns, yes. Yeah. Shotguns, SASG, and all of that. It's still a situation. It's still an issue, and definitely something that we need to keep an eye on. All right, we're going to end it here because otherwise we're going to make it way too easy for Kiloton to make a weird, cringy edit. It's probably already super easy for him, I think.
Who?
You're welcome. You have enough material.
Who?
Come on. So, all right. Do you have any final word? Hamish is just going to cut us off.
This is my last show, guys. Yeah.
You're going to be fired.
Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. It's been a journey. Thank you.
All right. No, okay. Thank you, guys. I hope we answered some of your questions. Keep the discussion going. And by the way, thank you guys for keeping the discussion actually constructive and civil in a way, because it's, as I said, it's a very polarizing debate. I know that people have very, very strong opinions about it. And of course, we can't make everyone happy. I just hope that the answers we gave you reassured some people, probably triggered others. Keep the discussion going, but please just keep it constructive. Don't go nuts. Don't start insulting each other. You can insult us, we're used to it, but don't insult each other. That's not cool. All right? Thank you, guys, and we'll see you next week.